Okay, we talk of historically, man and civilization has been molded by technology through weapons and wars. Okay, you should understand this, and that has been governed again by energy and by communication. So, but real force to energize the people who fight is food and agriculture, and that is based on bioresources. So I'm coming to this very important, less, as we don't give it that value and esteem that the subject actually deserves. Because without this, no amount of fuels, no amount of communication is going to work if you don't work with, without proper food and energy. So if we look at life on Earth, it is about 4 billion years old if we come from right from origin of life. And Homo sapiens have emerged as a species about 3 lakh years ago. It's not very long ago in our life on Earth. And our ancestors, they were hunter-gatherers, wild. We lived. This is the stage in the Neolithic phase of evolution. And then came sporadic and periodic settlements and understanding of how to harness food other than hunting and gathering, and that is around crops. And this was the advent of settlements and anthropogenic, tribal arrangements around water and good land. And now you can see, whilst we cropped, we also domesticated so many things. Human beings are central to everything that is living around us. We dominate who lives and who does not, what they do and what they don't. So we are a dominant species as of today. We know through the ages there was a dinosaur age and there was a age of all sorts, but today it's the human age. And look at what humans do. All this is doing of the humans. Look at this. At your home you have each one of these things without which you don't live. And look at the diversity that we have amongst us. And we are still struggling and trying to endure with the issue of diversity around us, both in terms of human diversity as well as in terms of the other biodiversity that prevails. Before I came here, I wondered that this institute of such a different mandate, what will I say? But while listening to your documentary and also to Professor Talukdar, I was pretty much at home that no, you do have interests in this area. So very much the variability among living organisms from all sources, including inter alia, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes which they are a part. This includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. So ecologies matter. They matter a lot. And this was the center of arguments over a period of time, from Montreal to, Stockholm to Montreal to Rio. So it was a very long journey where we realized that what we were doing, the way we were living, was not sustainable. So now if we look at nature, the first written understanding, not that we didn't understand it earlier, but a written organized understanding about natural forms was provided by this great guy, Charles Darwin. Okay, theory of natural selection and survival of the fittest, relationship of man with animals and plants in evolutionary history. By and large, what Darwinism tells us is how to look at ecologies and diversities, and how do we look at nature as a cause for change, and how do we look for a particular change in nature. So this gave us broad principles of looking for something in nature that we want. So the issue is that there's a principle in the laws of nature that when things are left to their own and humans and others don't interfere, then in the absence of migration, mutation and selection, things remain constant. Gene and genotype frequency, they remain constant. But the moment things move, the moment we have people selecting, not this, not this, or when there's a drastic change in environment and a mutation takes place, then the equilibrium shakes. The equilibrium shakes. And you'll find this with human societies also. We feel threatened when we have a lot of migration, when we have a lot of selections taking place. Oh, they said they are biased. Okay, and then we have mutations taking place, people changing their character altogether. So this is very much prevalent. You can see the diversity that we created. All these are bred dogs. They're not natural. But we created, and this is by spontaneous mutation selections, breeding. So we also have a capability of doing this. And this, into this, although it was happening all along, but this gentleman, this monk from Austria, Gregor Mendel, he worked very methodically. He was a tremendous scientist. He wasn't a scientist, he was a priest, but he had a scientific mind. The three facets which were qualitatively superior in him were his acumen for the choice of experimental material. Choice of experimental material was extremely sound. The second was his sense of recording data was very, very methodical. And the third was that he could analyze and interpret. So these faculties brought him as a legendary figure in the history of man. Now I mentioned these two people, Darwin and Mendel, because no matter how fast we are moving, no matter how much change that I'm going to tell you in the coming few minutes that has taken place, their observations and conclusions are enduring and abiding, and they remain constant and will remain constant. So you can see the green revolution took place based on genetics, Mendelian genetics, single genes governing characters of dwarfness. And look at this. It's a change from teosinte to maize. What a long journey in evolution and feeding. Can you believe it? That the world is actually sustaining its growth in population and feeding itself because of less than 10 genes. It's less than 5 genes in fact. And this is how genetics comes into center stage. And it is of immense importance as perhaps nuclear or plasma that this institute works upon, physics. So this subject is extremely dynamite. Okay, it's a tremendous subject. And the events happened very fast, and it is in that speed that I'll go. Between at the onset of the 20th century, 1903 up to the 80s, things happened at a fastest pace. It is in one lifetime of man. Chromosomes are hereditary units. You study all this in schools nowadays. And then chromosomes contain genes, and then it is chromosomes contain linear array of genes. All these findings came all of a sudden. Mutations are physical changes in genes because these are the hereditary agents. And recombination is caused by crossing over the meiosis, the mitosis, and recombination thereafter, how variation is actually generated. And then the issue came that DNA is the genetic material. So from variability, diversity to genes to DNA. Okay? And then the structure of DNA. That how is this DNA structured? And then how is it replicated, maintained, and stabilized from one generation to the other? And then what does DNA do? The genetic code. And then how does replication take place? You can see here transcription, translation taking place, and how amino acids are actually being formed, and this being the basis of your structure and what you do and what you think and what you are is what this is doing. DNA. So all this happened within a short span, and the dogma of life came to knowledge. From DNA to RNA to protein, thereafter everything. Like what happens. So it was a very fast journey if you look at 300,000 years of man on earth. So what is happening with every passing decade? Now what to talk of decade, every year. The pace of development in this area is so dynamic and so fast that it's overwhelming the people that are right in the center of it. So it's such a pace of things happening. Now, besides knowing DNA, we knew how to cut DNA by the endonucleases, and then we began to sequence DNA. And we came to know that we can sequence the whole genomes. Okay, when it was sequenced, it took so many years and billions of dollars. Today, your DNA can be sequenced by about $300. That's it. 25,000 rupees, and you can get your DNA sequence. So things have shifted from Janam Patri to Genome Patri. Okay, and then the technology evolved into how DNA can be artificially replicated. And then right before you can see it's just replicating by the PCR, and this can be done so routinely in the lab. Basically, we are replicating the whole thing. Now, this is a very potent technology. And from physical forms, we began to understand life in the language of AGCT. Earlier we say, this is Kutta, this is Billy, this is Adni. Now we say AGCT formation. What it did, from phenotype to genotype to genetics to genomics. We unified life in the language of DNA. We unified all life. A microbe and a virus is governed by the same principle as we are. The same command of life governs their life. We are one. And so every material is valuable and linked. And each living form is an option to survival and sustainability of the future. This is what the culmination of this whole science bogging down to a DNA sequence means, and it got an industrial formation. This is a true picture that DNA sequencing is done in an industrial mode in China. This was 6 years ago. Okay? Everywhere in the world now, they have such centers that are sequencing. And this is for medical applications, for other applications. So they're just sequencing. And why so? They want to understand disease, they want to diagnose, they want to rectify. And to do that, see, from this came the era of big biology. It's just not taxonomy, it's just not classifying plants, it's just not understanding ecologies, landscapes, and looking at things, but it's linking all that integratively to that sequence, and the sequence to the function, and the function to the ecology of working within the DNA profile. So without the subjects of chemistry, without the subject of mathematics, without the subject of all sciences for which this institution is privileged, biology has no standing on its own. You will feel short of knowledge if you don't have the integrative whole dimension of these subjects. You already know the importance of bioinformatics. It's just not biology. It's knowing biology in its entirety to understanding mathematics and algorithms. So it's all about in vivo, in vitro, and in silico. So what actually we are doing as humans? We are actually increasing the resolution, just as digitization and the digital era did. You know, the Google Maps do wonders. You can see the home of anybody, anywhere on Earth, if you trigger your Google, isn't it? So this is exactly, this is an old one, but today you can see your whole home and your garden and which plant is growing and which is not. When you're sitting in US, you can see in India. When you're in India, you can see in US. So that's the power of resolution that we have reached in terms of DNA sequence. So here, if we look at our journey of mankind, we look at it that we have already reached this domain of post-genomic era, and we are at the altar of the nano age. So look at the post-genomic era. I'll just delve a little bit more and come to practical examples of what we've been doing and what the future is. So, a large number of genomes already sequenced. Important challenge to decode function from the sequenced genomes, identify regulon and gene regulatory networks, and recreate. Already done. New life has already been created. You know GMOs. And this is a very famous example, golden rice. What was golden rice basically? I'm not going to the focused technical details, but actually genes from different organisms, like here, it's the daffodil, the bacteria, they have collected these genes and put them into rice such that it can code for vitamin A and iron. So It is fortified with vitamin A and iron, and you get an enriched nutritional dimension into the rice. This has been feasible, done, no fiction. Now, biology can't function on its own, so let's open up. The opening up has to be done at the senior level, elder level. Youngsters will follow what you tell them. They need the proper guidance. And already this has been done, that synthetically over the computer in silico, a whole DNA sequence has been synthesized. And this has been put into a blank cell, that microbial cell, and the cell has been made to function, replicate, multiply, and a new organism has been created. Already, synthetic cell has been created. Now you understand the implication of this. Synthetic biology? You heard the new term? Synthetic biology is on us, is waiting for the youngsters to perform the way they want to. But before that, you have to understand the whole organism in its metabolic sense and the pathways that function to provide a set of characters that you want. We've asked cows to give us milk. We've asked cows to plow for us. We've asked dogs to look after us. We've asked so many things I showed in that slide other animals to do. Today, we are going to ask. We've also used microbes, fermentation, probiotics, prebiotics. We've asked so many things from microbes. But now, we are going to make microbes do what we want. Produce what we want, not necessarily plants or anything. So, to protect the environment, this synthetic biology is going to play a pivotal role. So, it's important for us to understand the implications of this discovery in science. Now, human activities have caused a vast change in physical, chemical, geological, atmospheric, and biological realm of our planet. This we would all agree. We've not left anything, and basically, we've reached a point where global population is bursting, and there's hardly any potential for us to live the way we want to as in the past. In our own time, we've seen a vast change, and the CO2 levels are increasing and the temperatures are increasing, and we are talking of climate change, which is on us. Already the ambient CO2 levels have gone beyond 400, and this is something never happened in the history of man on earth. So how do we feed more people without further damaging the planet? And we all know that the damage to ecology, what it can do to the services that ecology provides us. We are here by virtue of the nature of God, what we call as nature. God is nothing but nature manifestation. So what does nature do? Nature enfolds a whole lot of biodiversity, which has genes, species, ecosystems, structure, function, everything it has. And this is necessary for all the services that you avail. We always say in school, for water, for fire, fuel, everything, climate. Our climate is governed by the ecology. Even our spiritual sense of integrity is governed by the ecology, and our cultural behavior is governed by the ecology. So it's very important to conserve these systems for a very secure, materially good life, social relations, and freedom. So you can understand the overbearing importance of all the bioresources. and their integrity within their ecologies if we are to survive as humans on planet Earth. Now, this has actually hit not only us but the whole globe, and the whole globe was pushed to think in the corner by the turn of the 20th century and into the 21st century. And they talked of the whole issue of sustainability, which was never talked about. And it's about keeping the future secure while we utilize resources to its optimum level in the present. So, all humans, remember, not only humans, all resources, all living things have a common future. Now, this is something you need to appreciate and understand. And once you do that, half the matter gets resolved. And we should understand that biology is at the center of our future. Whether you're a physicist, whether you're a mathematician, whether you're anybody, you've got to be linked to biology. Otherwise, we need to integrate our minds to think about sustainability of the future. Now, it's because of this very reason that biology has come to center stage globally in the minds of humans, that during the past few years, several heads of states have tabled their country agendas to promote future development by transforming agriculture, healthcare, energy, and environment, which is driven by traditional knowledge and biotechnology, and is termed as bioeconomy. So we had different centered economies. Today the world is steered by bioeconomy. The whole thing conceptually in writings began through all these international reportings, and there was a book, very interesting book, I recommend, and that is Natural Capital. It was written around about 98, and it sort of reflects a kind of future that we might have based on bioresources. Capitalist economies, they only thought capital and labor were the important components, but no. Today, the world over, they think no. There was a paper in Nature in the late 80s and beginning 90s about the services that ecosystems provide, and it was in trillions and trillions of dollars, which we take it for granted. Now, they say that unless and until in every industrial commercial venture we don't figure ecology and nature, we are not going to sustain our growth. So that thought process that does not consider the environment and ecology into growth is not going to be sustainable. Sooner than later, it will reach its fall. And all these countries have come out with papers on bioeconomy from the head of states. Obama did it. All the heads of state have done it. And it was Europe that started the whole thought process. But mind you, we never did a paper, but we were at the center of it in terms of our research agenda. We already had the Institute of Bioresources Development, in the Bioresources Technology, and the institute which Dr. Talukdar was heading prior to this place, IASST, we were on it. We were on the agenda of bioeconomy. So I will now, sustainable development and the bioeconomy, laws of thermodynamics apply, and economic and ecological progress have to go hand in hand. Non-renewable resources were being use fossil fuels, unsustainable, will finish. We have to substitute it with renewable. And another dimension is not only substitute, but even harvest and utilize below the growth rate. We should not utilize the whole of it. Keep some for your children, grandchildren, and thereof. Pollution, the environment should have the capacity to purify. So ecologies should be maintained in that way. Now, let's look at the agenda of the bioeconomy. And you will find biohealth, agri-biotechnology, bioindustrial, and bioenergy. Fuel crops come at the center, so there are so many devices. If you go through this in detail, biopharmaceuticals, medical devices, nutraceuticals, biosensors, and natural compounds and biomolecules. So it's a lot of products under each sector, biopesticides, fertilizers. You find a whole host of products in the animal domain, in the plant domain, GMOs, and then there are a lot of products that will come. Bioengineering is going to be at a tremendous stage where the designs now also, nature has the best designs. And in every sphere, whether it's aerodynamics, whether it's anything, we learn from nature. If you're not a good observer of nature, you can't be a good biologist, you can't be a good engineer for that matter. So observing nature is extraordinarily important. So we have to reduce the challenges before us, reduce greenhouse gases emissions, limit fossil fuel imports, diversify energy sources, waste to wealth, rural development. You heard all this. This is all the way we have to move forward. Nutrient retention, soil health, bioremediation, flood mitigation, so disaster management. And how do we drive all this? The question is, how do we move forward? So chemical prospecting, chemistry is extraordinarily important. See, we have to look at not only the face, we have to look at the composition of the DNA, the genes, the chemicals, and what it does. That's important. Until we characterize an organism right to its hilt, we are not going to use it. Because we have got, with time, we have to get more and more out of less and less. Only then we will reach a sustainable level of growth. So you can see all these points I've already said: pesticides, fertilizers, cosmetics, food additives, chemical products, gene prospecting, genetic engineering, crop development, fermentation, cell culture, diagnostics, and bioengineering, bionic prospecting, designs, sensor technologies, architecture, bioengineering, biomodeling, bioremediation. So our minds have to open up. Now, how do we start and where do we start? That's the question. Now, there are so many ways to start. And first of all, you should have a grip of the components. And that is indigenous knowledge. Don't lose your contact, connection, and knowledge of the past. Your grandmother knows more than you do, and you should respect. She's not lost. If she doesn't know how to operate your, what do you do there? Smartphone, huh? Don't devalue her. She knows more than you. Okay? So, you should know that they've had a smarter life. They knew how to solve their problems better. We get distressed very fast. We don't know. So, you should respect knowledge. So, you should know the link, how things have evolved. It's very important. The ecological knowledge is very important. You should know your environment, what potential it has. It has a certain potential beyond which it can't grow, so you should know that. And you should know the evolutionary rationale behind what your environment is. So it's a very, very important issue that we get to know this fact. Now, with this background of what I've said, I'm going to tell you certain practical things we have been doing at our institute over time to harness the value of a resource base. Like I said, all living things are unified. Now, nothing is waste. Nothing is waste, and that you should understand. It's the way you look at it and what you want out of something that you value. Now, we, want to understand. We work in the mountain systems and at high altitudes, and we found that at one of the peaks in the Himalayas, where there is very harsh weather, only one single species survives. And we asked a question, that why? And we also asked a question, how are they photosynthesizing? Very high UV radiation, very low CO2, and very high light intensity. Now this is the environment up there. Now under that, how is it performing photosynthesis? It is having low access to carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide and water together and light, they do photosynthesis. So we asked this question of photosynthesis. And over about 14 years of research, what we found, and I'm going to just summarize that. We found that all plants respire. There is photorespiration taking place, and they release carbon dioxide. And also they release this amino acid, ammonia. Two things they release, ammonia and CO2. What we found that at high altitude, you all know that in C3 plants, rubisco is the enzyme that actually captures the carbon dioxide. But at high altitude we found no, it's not only rubisco, it is rubisco and pepcase, both are capturing. And pepcase actually captures the CO2 which is coming out of respiration. So it is recycling the respired CO2. And it is recapturing the nitrogen which is being released in the form of ammonia. And you are getting equally efficient photosynthesis. There's no change in the rate of photosynthesis. This is an amazing discovery. And actually this is taught in schools, in colleges in US, I must tell you, this work. And what we did was, we found that which are the enzymes that are actually, here you find pepcase actually functioning. We did it through radiolabel studies. And then we found aspartate aminotransferase that is converting the oxaloacetic acid into aspartame, the amino acid. And then the ammonia is being converted in the GS-GO-GET pathway where glutamine synthase is the enzyme. Now what we did, we found the structure and machinery which is efficiently utilizing carbon dioxide and ammonia. And we got these genes together in a way synthesized, and we put them into the model system Arabidopsis, and we found we could get 20% more photosynthesis. You should know one thing, till date in agriculture, nobody has improved the rate of photosynthesis, and the whole focus globally is in converting C3 plants into C4 and utilizing pepcase. And this is a chance discovery, and a proof that we can. See, all this green revolution, we never changed photosynthesis. We only changed source to sink relationship. From the vegetative part, the photosynthate went to the grain. But the overall biomass was the same. Here, we've improved the overall biomass. So this is from a plants which are just not known. It's a discovery of great significance, of great economic implications. Now, I'll give you another example. We have, you know, tea is your plant. I intentionally brought this. We worked out the whole biosynthetic pathway of the synthesis of catechins in tea, and we regrouped it and made tobacco to produce catechins. They say tobacco causes cancer. Now, to stretch the matter, catechins are antioxidants. Do you know that? And if antioxidants, they battle cancer. It shouldn't be suggested, I'm just joking. But smoking this tobacco is not going to cause you cancer. It will. Don't, I'm just joking, I said. Anyway, but it's important that this can be done. Metabolic engineering is being done, and conserving endangered plants by understanding metabolic pathways, biosynthetic pathways, synthesizing the genes and transforming plants. We can have alternative production systems, and we are doing that for most of the endangered plants in the Himalayan zone. So this work is being done so that our economic prosperity is sustainable and secure. Now, this is a very important issue. This is a plant, single plant at a peak. And we said why? And we discovered a very important enzyme in it, the superoxide dismutase, which is an antioxidant. And I'll be very brief. This enzyme we have cloned. We've got the gene, we cloned it, and this enzyme has applications and implications like a chip. You know, chip is used in your cell phone you have, it's used in the computer, it's used everywhere in the microprocessor, whatever. Even this uses a chip. So without a chip, we don't live. So if you look at this, pharmaceutical industry, it preserves the shelf life of organs, and this is proven by us. It increases the shelf life of food. It improves the skin, okay, protects you from UV, and we can produce plants that can sustain stress. Experimentally, we've proven each claim. It's the largest patent in biology obtained in our country. It has about 103 claims awarded in US, and this has been licensed, and we've got a recovery of 1 crore to commercialize it, and also 5% royalty. This is a commercialized product, superoxide dismutase. What is important in it is that this product is thermostable. All superoxide dismutases, every living being has SOD, but this one is thermostable. It doesn't disintegrate. So this is the uniqueness about this sod, and it is commercialized from India. See, in surgery, it is very cryosurgery. Now look at this. This is your state. It can be. Can you make it? I was talking of bionics. Look at this. You know, Northeast has the maximum bamboo in the world. And bamboo is one of the most important resources that we might have. And just look at its applications. Can you create employment through this? Why not? Challenge. Look at that. That's a reality in India. At Palanpur, it was my passion. And it's one of the beautiful bamboo homes. It has everything of bamboo. floor to door to everything. So it's a bamboo made. Now, the Himachal economy depends on apple. All of you know that. And the whole juicing is done and the thing is wasted. And it causes pollution. Look at the dumps there. And what we did from the waste to wealth I talked about, we've already made kurkure, we've made dietary fibers, we've made so many products. And this has created a ripple that yes, if you think about it in a scientific way, you can create wealth from waste. So it's easy. Just think logically, common sense wise. From the sea, this is a seaweed which gives fertilizer. For it's very difficult and very expensive phosphorus fertilizer. And from the sea, one of our labs has been able to commercialize fertilizer. And you can see biofertilizers, Dr. Talukdar also has been working, and there have been a lot in this area. And look at this. Once again, your state. I've intentionally put all this. This is a reality. It's not a fiction. Procter & Gamble, in association with our lab, has come out with this product. So there's a lot of fascinating world before you. Chemical prospecting, and all of you know last year what happened in Artemis' name. They got a Nobel, going through the whole story of this malarial drug development. So it's a tremendous fascination. Look at this Gila monster. It eats only 4 or 5 times in a year. Only 4 or 5 times. It doesn't eat as much. And they found that this exendin is similar structure to glucogen. It's a peptide and it regulates blood glucose and satiety. That means it doesn't make you feel hungry. You feel nirvana all the time. Very good to achieve next level of meditation. So it's all from lives and biology. Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. So please understand the subject, and understanding this evolutionary significance can lead to interesting bioprospecting deals that can drive future economies. So in conclusion, I just say, come on, stand up and think and try and achieve. Thank you for bearing with me.